Nothing you've lived was a coincidence. Every repeated number, every strange encounter, every postponed decision carries a hidden weight. Today, you'll discover why Machiavelli, Young, and Einstein knew that fortune is not randomness. Stay until the end to understand how to turn coincidences into power. Chance is a comfortable excuse for those who cannot bear the weight of their own decisions. It was invented to soothe the anxiety of not understanding why everything sometimes aligns so perfectly without a logical explanation. But alignment exists, and what some call coincidence is nothing more than a language, one that isn't learned through books, but through attention to experience. Machiavelli wasn't interested in miracles. His domain was power, movement, strategy. That's why he spoke of fortune not as a capricious muse, but as an untamed force that only the bold know how to use. The world is brutal, unstable, unjust, but that doesn't mean it lacks structure. The structure is there, hidden in details most people ignore because they live anesthetized by routine. Every encounter that changes your life, every number that repeats until it's impossible to ignore, every phrase that resonates at the exact moment, none of these appear to decorate your path. They are rupture points in the system, fractures, moments where the false control of modern life dissolves and something deeper emerges. That energy is magical. It's reality reacting to your willingness to look beyond the script you were given. Since childhood, you were taught to discard intuition, to laugh at gut feelings, to prefer the predictable. They trained you to be efficient, not awake, but being awake has consequences. Once you see the connection, you can't go back to being blind. You can't pretend randomness rules your path, because you know it does, and single quotes T. Carl Jung called it synchronicity. Einstein mocked the idea of chance because he sensed the universe operated under subtler laws we couldn't yet comprehend. Machiavelli, however, was more practical. He didn't try to understand fortune, he wanted to master it. For him, the key wasn't deciphering the mystery, but being prepared when the door opened. And if you weren't ready, that opportunity would not return. Fortune is not patient. It only rewards the one who acts. There are people who are alive but not awake. They see signs pass by without registering anything. They let moments slip that could have changed everything because of fear, distraction, or obedience to the mandate of control. Then they wonder why nothing changes, but they know. Even if they don't say it, they know. When someone acts without waiting for guarantees, they act from a place that unsettles the system. Instinct. That force that cannot be measured or proven, but that pushes you into the exact moment. Machiavelli knew it wasn't enough to be right. You had to move before the others, occupy the space before it disappeared. Not because he believed in luck, but because he understood the mechanics of chaos. Passivity is the fertile ground of those who lose. Not because they're incapable, but because they choose to wait for signs that already happened and they failed to read. Fortune does not knock. It filters through the ordinary, the minimal. It's an elegant trap. It appears when almost no one is looking, and when it touches you, it doesn't warn twice. That's why the one who doesn't act stays behind. You are trained to ignore that inner pulse. To ask for permission, to plan forever, to fill your head with theory and never step onto the battlefield. But life doesn't reward endless preparation. It rewards the leap. It rewards the one who sees a crack and slips through without asking. The one who sees chaos and reads opportunity. That is Verk. Machiavelli didn't speak of morality. He didn't write for the good. He wrote for the lucid, for those who understood the world was a dirty game yet that didn't justify staying still. He didn't ask for purity. He asked for vision, for strength, for courage, not the courage to die, but the courage to decide. When fortune arrives, it doesn't come with banners. It disguises itself as doubt, error, discomfort. That's where real opportunity hides. But only the available see it, those who have stopped seeking safety and started listening with the body, not the mind. The mind hesitates. The body knows. Chaos is not the enemy. It's the natural terrain for those who learn to see beyond artificial order. In disorder there are clues. In the unexpected, a path. In the improbable, a password. History is full of moments where everything seemed lost, yet someone moved. They didn't have all the answers, they only had clarity. And that clarity came from out attention, from being awake while others slept. That's where true strategy begins, not in controlling the environment, but in mastering yourself. Fortune is not conquered through rigidity. It is conquered through sharpness, through fierce presence, through impulses that cannot be explained but that transform. When the signal appears, it's not always clear. Sometimes it comes as silence, other times disguised as loss. Some receive it as a blow, others ignore it entirely. But the one who recognizes it and doesn't let it slip is the one who advances. Because behind every fragment of reality that looks harmless, there is a door, a possibility, a break. Jung understood this when he saw how the psyche projected its needs onto objects, events, symbols. What wasn't resolved inside found a way to scream outside. The unconscious does not rest, and when attention is trained, the world begins to respond, not because the universe revolves around you, but because your perception filters and selects precisely what you are ready to see. This is not magic, it is readiness. Machiavelli wouldn't have ignored those signals. He knew that in the game of power, nothing is gratuitous. Every event has value if used. What is useless is not what happens, but what you let pass. That's why he despised inaction. To him, the world was brutal, but malleable. Fortune, a wild river that overflows if you don't build margins in time. And time is the one thing that never returns. Action doesn't wait for the perfect moment. The strategist doesn't wait for ideal conditions. He acts when something burns inside, when the body knows it's now, even if the environment seems confused, even if logic says no, even if everything indicates it's not the right time, because what's at stake isn't the result, it's inner sovereignty. The right to decide without guarantees, that impulse that appears without explanation, that call, that encounter, that sudden idea is not an accident, it's a reflection, a trace, and if you ignore it, you don't just lose an opportunity. You lose a part of yourself that was asking to move forward. Every time you choose not to act, you give up territory. And when you give up territory, the system advances, silent, efficient, disguised as routine. True strategy is not a formula. It's a way of being, a way of perceiving, a rhythm that doesn't follow the calendar or statistics, but the inner pulse. What Machiavelli called vertigo was simply this brutal ability to see chaos as raw material, to read the fracture as an entrance, and to move without hesitation. This is what separates those who build their destiny from those who wait to be saved by destiny. Chance, in the end, is just a story designed to keep you still. Fortune, however, is a fierce territory that opens only to those who invoke it with actions, with steady gaze, with sharpened will. The one who acts even trembling is already on the other side. Because there is no greater power than awakened consciousness making a decision. That is the test. And that is the only real freedom. Now you know. Chance was only an excuse not to act. If something resonated with you, don't ignore it. Subscribe, activate the bell, leave your like, and comment if you felt the call. Watch the next video. None of this was a coincidence.